Let's take a look at the Project Analytics product. To access the analytics, I'm going to click on the globe icon on the left side of the screen. This is going to take us to the Unify web portal, where I'll be able to access Project Analytics as well as other Unify features. Now heads up, company admins will see all of the tabs here, but regular users will only see the Project Analytics and Notifications tabs. I'm going to click here on the Project Analytics tab. Now I can see the data collected on all of my projects. This helps me diagnose and keep an eye on the model health and quality of my Revit projects. As long as my team members have Unify installed and I as admin have opted into collecting data on this project, then every time a sync occurs, the data is pushed to this database, and my team can visualize this information on these dashboards. The Overview section gives me a high-level overview of all of the activity across all models and projects in my organization. I can view sync time and some other straightforward statistics. I can also see health indicators, which we will get into more detail on shortly. The Revit Version Check system helps to identify some possible issues of Revit model corruption. Revit model corruption happens when different minor versions of Revit are being used on a single model. For example, 2018.1 versus 2018.3. Unify flags models where that is happening so that I can resolve the issue. I can also drill down into this information a little more to determine who I need to contact to have them upgrade their Revit installation. Under Families here, I can see which families have come from my libraries or not. If most of these are non-Unify families, then that tells me that I have a little work to do as a BIM manager. Over here under Families, I can view the most used families throughout all models. In the far right column, I can view the number of models they've been inserted into. Now let's look at what's under the Projects tab. Project Analytics projects are not to be confused with Revit projects. The projects in Project Analytics are a way to aggregate data from multiple models. For example, if you have a larger project broken up into multiple Revit models, then you can view aggregated data from multiple models as a project in this section. Let's go ahead and click on one of these projects. At the very top here is an overall health score. The health score is based on the health indicators seen below. Each of these indicators can be one of three states: needs attention, caution, and acceptable. The more indicators you have under acceptable, the higher your overall health score will be. As an admin, I can go in and control those health indicator thresholds per project. To do this, let's go to the Settings tab. You can see here each of the health indicators. Let's say that I don't think that Revit links are detrimental to my model health. I can go into the settings and choose to ignore that health indicator. However, let's say that I find sync time an indication of when a model is becoming less efficient. I can set thresholds for the sync time health indicator, like 10 minutes is a caution and 20 minutes is when I feel the model needs attention. Let's go back to the project overview. Click on the Overview tab. If we scroll down to the bottom of the page, we can see sync times and file sizes over time. This gives us a simple comparison of the file size, which is the line, and the sync time, which is the column. This can help you see trending data. Let's look at a full year. If you see here, there is a much longer sync than the rest. This might be an opportunity for me to reach out to IT to see what happened. For BIM managers, the file size over time is a useful analytic because unjustified increases in file sizes might indicate that there is an issue that needs attention. Now let's click on the Models tab. What I can do is drill down into an individual model now. You can see this model as a BIM 360 design model, so it's a cloud model. Unify supports BIM 360 cloud models as well as a Revit server for those shared models. If we scroll down here, we can see many of the widgets identical to those in the project overview, but applicable to this specific model. We can now review syncs for this specific model. I can view data on who synced and which machine name they were on. If I see someone with an old or outdated version of Revit, I know who to reach out to and which machine that they're using. File size is also a great data point because I can see who made file sizes increase and when. If this jumps up to 100 megs, then I know who to reach out to so that I can see if that was intentional. Now let's go to the Content tab. Since we are looking at one individual model, we can drill down and view some of the contents within this model as well. I have visibility here of sheets. I also have visibility of room data. Now keep in mind as I'm going through things, these are not schedules that were created in these Revit models. We're just surfacing data around these types of content. For instance, let's say that you have team members who might need to reference this information, such as room data or revisions, but they are non-BIM stakeholders. In other words, they're involved in projects but don't have training on Revit. Now they can review this surface data without having to open the Revit model or even ask someone to export this information. All of these types are trackable in our system, so you'll see that we are tracking more than just families here. But let's go ahead and select families for now. I can see quite a bit of information here in terms of the families loaded into this model. I can do things like sort by instances placed, and see all of the families that technically could be purged out of this model. I can even identify families that are in-place families. So if at your firm you frown against in-place families, you now have an element ID tied to that in-place family, and you can go in and replace it with a loadable family. You can even identify which families came from your library or not. Let's filter by only Unify source families. For any Unify sourced families, I can identify the units that the families were modeled in, as well as their revisions. Here in Project Analytics, you have visibility of the revision of the families that are loaded into this model and can compare it to the current revision in the Unify libraries. This way, you'll be able to easily identify which families are outdated in this model. Now let's select the Compare Changes tab. Compare Changes is a way for you to track changes to the content that Unify is tracking and even tie it to a specific sync. Let's go ahead and expand this date range by clicking on the date range at the top of this graph and selecting a larger range. The scatter plot shows every single sync in this model within the date range. I can modify the date range of this data by clicking on the date range and selecting a new range. I can click on any point in this graph and can see who synced and when. If I scroll down to the table view, I can see exactly what the user accomplished in that sync. I can see that they loaded an Air Terminal family and that it did come from my Unify library. I can see that they placed several instances of content that was already loaded. A couple of them aren't from the library, so maybe there is some work for me to do here as the BIM model manager. I can see changes to levels, so this particular user moved the elevation of the parapet level. Just having visibility of changes of levels can be a critical piece to this feature. I can track revisions such as changes to RFIs, where they were issued, when they were issued, and who they were issued to. I can also track changes to rooms. I can see here that this user increased the area of room 101, and they even dropped room number 123 down to 0 square feet. So this might be a good opportunity to turn this into a training exercise and reach out to this individual and chat about how to properly delete walls. In this section, I'm able to track changes made to sheets, schedules, worksets, and spaces, and even who has added CAD imports to the project as well. As you can see, the Project Analytics feature of Unify allows you to easily manage your project by helping you track the status of the project, determine project health, identify specific issues that may require swift corrective action, and more.